Because this is not just the game picking another fight. This looks like a man watching Kendrick Lamar and AZ Chike turn one messy documentary 3 credit into a public loyalty test. And if the reads coming off the West are even half right, that test already ended badly for him. A rising rapper tied to the No One Mourns the Wicked rollout allegedly wanted off Game's record. Whack 100 went online sounding way too heated for a man who claims nothing happened. And now, fans are connecting that chaos to the exact same rumor nobody in Game's corner can control. Kendrick may be about to reward loyalty without ever saying Game's name. That's the part people keep missing. A lot of fans still think this is just trolling, just promo, just another day in the circus. No, this is identity change in real time. Because when a legacy name like The Game, Mr. Nostalgia Rollout himself, can't get the silent guy to answer, can't make the coast move with him, and can't even hold a younger artist on the record once the politics get weird, that is not noise anymore. That is status collapse. Personal stakes, culture stakes, system stakes, all at once. And when we get to that whack rant, that removed verse, and the business reason Kendrick never has to answer the attention merchant directly, the whole picture gets a lot darker for him. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. To understand why this matters, you have to zoom out. The Game is still a gifted rapper with a huge catalog and a real place in West Coast history. That part is not in dispute. What is in dispute is what he is doing with that legacy right now. For a while now, he has looked less like a statesman and more like a man trying to manufacture relevance by orbiting bigger names, poking at old tensions, and using controversy as a rollout tool. You can hear the hunger, you can see the desperation, and you can definitely see the timing. Now put that next to Kendrick Lamar, who has built the exact opposite kind of power. Kendrick rarely wastes words, rarely takes bait, and almost never moves unless the move means something. He has turned selectivity into leverage. One verse from him can reset a whole artist's year. One appearance can change how fans read an entire region. So when people around him or artists clearly aligned with his values make a public choice, fans read that choice like evidence. Does everybody understand how crazy that is? Silence around Kendrick is not empty. It is loaded. Then you have AZ Chike, who has been rising fast off raw energy, scene-stealing appearances, and a kind of West Coast hunger that feels current instead of nostalgic. The chatter around his project, No One Mourns the Wicked, and the buzz around records tied to Tyler the Creator put him in a very sharp spot. He is no longer just trying to get seen. He is choosing what lane he wants to be seen in. That is a different stage of career. And when a young artist reaches that stage, every feature, every placement, every alliance starts saying something bigger than the song. That is why the rumored friction around Game's record matters right now. If AZ really chose distance when things got messy, that is not a small admin move. That is a statement about trust, about the coast, and about who still has future value in these rooms. And I think we need to set the record straight on what is actually happening here. Because why would a younger act walk away from easy exposure unless the cost of staying was even higher? As far as the public rollout goes, the first big sign was AZ Chike moving like somebody with real confidence. He did not announce a project with the slow, shaky energy of a rapper begging for attention. The No One Mourns the Wicked chatter came with urgency, with short runway timing, and with the kind of feature talk that tells you a team believes it has something. When fans started hearing Tyler the Creator attached to a record in that orbit, the mood changed fast. That is not please notice me energy. That is we know what we have energy. And yes, those optics matter. Why does that matter for Game? Because timing is everything in rap. A younger artist about to enter a bigger tier does not usually burn bridges for fun. If he's tightening his image right before a major drop, you pay attention. You do not shrug. The moment a rapper goes from I need all exposure to I only need the right exposure, the map changes. That is when old power stops bullying new power. That is when alignment beats volume. And the attention merchant has been betting on volume for a long time now. See the mismatch yet? The second piece of surface evidence is the one that made everybody stop scrolling. The report that AZ's appearance on Game's record was removed or swapped out after the project moved forward. Whether you saw it through track list chatter, fan screenshots, or the endless repost machine, the message people took from it was the same. Something changed, and it didn't change in game's favor. If a younger rapper was comfortable staying on the record, he stays on the record. Simple. When the credit vanishes and the story starts leaking around it, people don't read that as random housekeeping. They read that as a boundary. And if you want to know whether that boundary hurt, look at the third piece of public evidence, Whack 100 going online and talking about it with way too much emotion for a man pretending the move was nothing. This is where the megaphone manager told on the whole operation, because every time he tried to downplay AZ, every time he framed it like Game had already planned to replace him, the subtext got louder. If the artist didn't matter, why spend airtime on him? If the choice was meaningless, why sell the explanation so hard? Come on now, that's spin.
Whack's language, at least from the clips fans were circulating, did not sound like victory. It sounded like bruise control. It sounded like somebody trying to get in front of a narrative before the culture did it for him. And that is the thing about public damage in rap. The cover-up often lands harder than the event. Once people hear a manager explain too much, they assume the room was hotter than advertised. Once they hear a legacy act's camp obsess over a younger name, they start asking the question nobody in that camp wants asked: who really needed whom? The fourth visible sign is almost funny in how clean it is. AZ did not spend the week begging for forgiveness, sending out soft disclaimers, or running around acting scared of the backlash. He kept moving with his own rollout. He kept pointing forward. He kept acting like a man who knew the future was still in front of him. That is one of the coldest tells in this whole story, because panic looks one way and clarity looks another. And from the outside, only one side here looked calm. And oh, that calm is about to matter even more. And oh, do I have more for you, because the stands for Mr. Nostalgia rollout are really not going to like this next part. It is one thing for fans to argue over a pulled feature. It is another thing when the people around the coast start reading that move as a loyalty signal and a warning shot. And speaking of which, it seems like one of those quiet disses actually landed, because the next layer is not just about track lists, it is about who the culture thinks Kendrick still answers for, who AZ looks comfortable standing beside, and why that Whack rant may have accidentally exposed a much bigger play. Once the story left the spreadsheets and hit the culture, the tone changed. West Coast fans on X, YouTube, and the usual rap corners did not talk about this like a clerical error. They talked about it like code. If you are from a scene where respect, lineage, and public alignment still matter, a removed feature is not just a removed feature, it is a flag. Fans immediately started reading AZ as someone who did not want his name caught in a rollout that looked like a sneak jab at Kendrick. And whether every fan was right is almost beside the point. The culture read loyalty. Then came the second cultural layer, the response to Whack's response. A lot of people did not hear confidence in those clips. They heard damage control. Some even argued that the megaphone manager accidentally raised AZ's stock by making the entire situation look bigger than it would have looked on its own. That is the comedy of it all. You try to little bro a younger artist, and all you do is tell the whole internet he mattered enough to frustrate your camp. Heavy spin, light results. That is not power. That is panic wearing a loud hat. There was also chatter around voices adjacent to Kendrick's world, including on podcasts and stream clips, basically saying this whole thing only makes sense if AZ has a very clear idea of what side he wants to stand on. In one exchange making the rounds, the logic was simple. If a rising artist is about to drop a major project, has stronger collaborations on deck, and still chooses to duck the optics of standing beside Game during this moment, then that artist likely believes he is protecting something more valuable than one song. That is not hard proof of a Kendrick feature, but it is strong cultural math. Now, I want to be fair here. A counter-argument exists. Maybe there was no grand strategy. Maybe this was just a team decision about album clutter, sample clearance, business timing, or clean branding before a new release. That is possible. But even if you grant all of that, the conclusion barely changes. Why? Because clean branding is the point. If the Game look was clean, nobody cleans it off. If the optics were harmless, nobody rushes to explain them. The very need to manage the perception proves the perception was dangerous, and that is where the attention merchant keeps losing. The third cultural sign is AZ himself refusing to perform guilt. He did not move like a man trapped, he moved like a man choosing. That matters in hip-hop. Fans can smell forced politics. They can also smell confidence. And the more AZ kept his eyes on his own record, his own momentum, his own next level, the more people projected a very simple idea onto the moment. This young dude believes his future is with the builders, not the trolls. You do not have to agree with every fan theory to see why that theory took off. The picture fits. And then there is the wider coast energy. Tyler the Creator moving, Kendrick's orbit buzzing, talk of new records, festival noise, and the sense that several key names are building forward while Game keeps looking sideways. That contrast is lethal. One side feels like motion, the other feels like commentary about motion. One side is making tomorrow, the other is live streaming yesterday. So, before anybody turns this into just another fan war, stop right there, because the real story is not who got mad online. The real story is how value works when the culture stops trusting your name. But this is where the easy rap conversation ends and the business starts, because what we're watching is not just a personality clash, it's a leverage clash. Legacy artists and younger artists value different things at the same time. A veteran with a famous catalog may prioritize attention spikes, media cycles, and any conflict that reactivates old brand equity. A rising act with heat, on the other hand, prioritizes clean association, playlist trust, festival optics, label confidence, and long-run brand build. Same genre, different math. And if those two goals collide, somebody gets treated like a short-term asset. That first system angle is the attention economy, and the Game has been living inside that for years. Controversy is not just noise, it's inventory. Sneak shots, messy interviews, old beef bait, odd alliances, random tension with bigger names, all of that generates clips. Clips generate discourse. Discourse generates searches. Searches reactivate album sales.
Streams and podcast invites and nostalgia traffic, it is a very real monetization loop. I am not saying every move is cynical by design, but the pattern is visible. Mr. Nostalgia Rollout keeps finding ways to turn conflict into oxygen. The problem is that algorithmic oxygen is not the same as cultural trust, and cultural trust is the second system angle, maybe the biggest one in modern rap. And I do not even like making this point, because the second Kendrick Lamar's name comes up, people scream bias. But business is business. He has built a form of power that does not rely on speaking often. He distributes value by scarcity. He does not need to yell, he chooses. That means a verse, a show of support, or even the rumor of access to him becomes a kind of social currency. Labels understand this, managers understand this, younger artists absolutely understand this. So when AZ appears to choose distance from one camp while fans suspect closer alignment to Kendrick's side of the coast, he is not just making an emotional call, he is making a capital allocation decision. In plain English, one game placement might bring temporary conversation. A healthy relationship with the disciplined side of the West can bring years of opportunity. Think about touring packages, festival invites, trusted producers, playlist positioning, feature reciprocity, cosign momentum, and the way fans re-rank an artist when serious names treat him like family. That is how ecosystems work. And that is why the megaphone manager sounding offended is so telling. He is arguing about one song while the other side is arguably thinking about network value. That is checkers meeting logistics. That is a loud short-term trying to fight a quiet long-term. There's also a media angle people keep skipping. Rap media loves a simple hero-villain loop because it's cheap to package. Game versus Kendrick is easier to sell than a younger artist choosing brand discipline over controversy. So the noisy version gets amplified and the structural version gets ignored. That is how manufactured narratives live longer than the facts underneath them. But when you slow the tape down, the facts are brutal. The younger artists stayed future-facing, the veteran camp stayed reactive. The blogs got their clips, the coast got its answer. Who really won that exchange? And this is why I keep saying Game's real problem is not bars, it's trust erosion.
Bars can survive age. Bars can survive a bad rollout. Bars can survive a flop. Trust does not come back so easy once enough people decide your moves are engineered for reaction instead of rooted in principle. In hip-hop, access follows trust. Phone calls follow trust. Surprise features follow trust. Tour invites follow trust. Even silence follows trust. Kendrick can ignore you and still dominate the meaning of the moment because the market believes his silence is intentional. That is elite leverage. The attention merchant cannot manufacture that. So when you tie the pulled feature, the public spin, the calmer rollout on AZ's side, and the wider West Coast momentum together, the business picture gets sharp fast. This was never mainly about one record. It was about whose ecosystem a rising artist thinks is safer, cleaner, and more profitable to stand in. And once that becomes the question, the game is in real trouble. Because the answer, at least from the outside, is not his name. And that brings us to the ugliest truth in this whole mess. What I think is happening here is the final warning from Kendrick Lamar and AZ Chike is not a diss track at all. It's exclusion. It's the culture watching a veteran keep reaching for friction while the real power centers quietly move around him. That's way more devastating than bars. Bars can be debated. Exclusion cannot. If the coast's most valuable relationships are being built without you, if younger acts think their image is safer away from you, and if even your public defenders keep sounding irritated instead of secure, then the verdict is already forming in real time. That is the truth bomb. Game is not being beaten only in music discourse. He is being downgraded in trust. And in rap, trust is what unlocks rooms. Trust gets you the call. Trust gets you the hidden verse, the late album placement, the last-minute festival embrace, the serious executive attention, the benefit of the doubt when things get messy. Lose that, and all you have left is performance. All you have left is the costume of influence after the influence itself has started leaving the building. Does everybody see how catastrophic that is? Now take it one step further. If the rumored Kendrick involvement around AZ's world turns out to be real, then this becomes ceremonial. It becomes the quietest body blow possible. The young artist allegedly removed himself from your orbit, then stands beside the very standard you were trying to antagonize. That's not just bad optics, that's a public transfer of legitimacy. And if the rumor never cashes out into a feature, the warning still lands, because the move already taught everyone the same lesson. Proximity to the game is no longer automatically an upgrade. For some artists, it may be a liability. And that's why this moment matters beyond one feud and beyond one coast. It shows how the whole machine works now. The old model said volume wins, controversy sells, and legacy can bully reality forever. The new model says discipline compounds, trust monetizes, and younger artists choose ecosystems, not just songs. That's devastating for anybody still trying to run an old grift in a new market. The culture is not just laughing at Mr. Nostalgia rollout, it's routing around him. And once the system starts routing around you, the fall is not dramatic, it's terminally quiet. Which brings us to the part a lot of people in the comments already feel in their gut. The right people are still winning. Kendrick is winning because he keeps doing the hardest thing in this business, making less look like more. He doesn't sprint toward every insult. He doesn't burn power proving he has power. He lets the results talk, and then he adds one precise move when it matters. That is why his name still carries so much weight in rooms he never has to enter publicly. Discipline ages well. Manufactured chaos does not. AZ is winning too, and that matters just as much. The easiest path for a rising act is to grab every placement, take every look, and pray the noise turns into numbers. The smarter path is to decide what kind of career you actually want. By all appearances, AZ chose the second one. The calm after the controversy, the forward-facing rollout, and the refusal to look pressed all told the same story. One man was trying to go viral off old respect. The other side was turning respect into new records. That is the whole movie in one line. So, if you were wondering who really walked out of this cleaner, look back at the evidence. The pooled feature created questions Game could not control. The megaphone manager's spin made those questions worse. The West Coast energy kept moving toward tomorrow anyway. That is why I am not dooming the culture here. I'm actually more optimistic because standards still mean something. Loyalty still means something. Restraint still means something. And when the smoke clears, the artists who do every part of the job with intention are still the ones rising. This is only the start, too. The next real checkpoint is obvious. AZ Chike's full album picture, the final feature list, and whether any of these rumored Kendrick connections turn from whisper to record. On top of that, watch how Game responds. Does he go louder? Does the megaphone manager spin harder? Or does the silence from the other side get even more expensive for him? Keep your eyes on the coast, because this is bigger than one rollout now. If you have a take, I want it. Tell me whether AZ made the right move, whether Kendrick even needs to say a word, and whether Game can recover this image at all. And if you've been rocking with me, you already know why I stay on this stuff before the mainstream catches up. We talked before about how the West was heading toward another power swing, and now you can see the board moving. So subscribe if you want the next layer the second it drops, because the follow-up video is going to be wild. The shock is that one quiet feature could redraw the whole coast again. The mystery is which camp really has the next year mapped out, and the payoff is seeing who gets treated like the future when the track lists stop lying. I'll see you there.